Let's bring into the conversation national trial attorney Mike Jaafar, who is standing by for us. Michael, your take on this case so far?
I mean, in order to be able to posit any kind of a defense in the family of like insanity or having a psychotic break, you have to show that the person could not appreciate the wrongfulness of what they're doing, or that what they were doing was, they did not know was wrong, right? They could not formulate the requisite intent to commit the actual crime. I'm sure it has happened, Julia, but I'm not aware of cases where somebody was able to, successfully posit that defense when they said it was a temporary insanity. We all learn about it in law school. These laws are old, but I don't, pragmatically, I don't see it happening. I was involved in a case many years ago where my client, my defense was he was always insane, right? And that was different. He had a long medical history with medicine, medication, events, and that was more of a realistic defense. But I'm not aware of a situation where somebody's able to, successfully posit a defense that they were temporarily insane. What they did was just, they did not know it was wrong at the time. So I don't know. So far from what I'm seeing, Julia, I think she's going to go to jail.
Yeah, what I've noticed in some trials where this defense is lodged, they use the term, Chanley, psychotic break. Right. That she is suffering from this, but there's also this moment of psychosis. Right. And that word, they think, gets them to insanity.
Exactly. And that was, we talked about Darrell Brooks. He attempted to do and was ultimately denied by the judge to use that with all the expert testimony. But yes, this is interesting. And Michael, this is a prosecution that believes that, like you said, there hadn't been any mental health issues leading up to this event, and even when the witnesses called so far to the stand were actually on the phone. She was on the mom, the victim, on the phone with the school administrators at the time of her murder. They've been testifying that there wasn't any warning sign or yelling or odd behavior of this defendant before she did horrific things to her mother. I do want to take a moment though and listen to one of the administrators testifying about being on the phone and what she heard.
Tara is our assistant. While Tara was looking up that address, the phone cut off at some point after. I would say that somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 or 7 of those thuddings, those sort of thud sounds, and the screaming had continued.
And when you say the phone cut off, did the call drop, or
the
was
call
it
dropped? Yeah,
okay.
We lost the call.
Okay.
And so we decided to keep, while we were waiting for the address, to keep calling. We called the number back.
Brenda's number?
Brenda's number that she had left, and we called twice, and there was no answer. It rang and rang and rang and no answer. When it went to voicemail, we hung up and we called again. And then on the 3rd time, and I had just gotten the address as the phone was answered. Okay. On the third try to the number, and Dean Frazier said something along the lines of, "Brenda, is that you? Are you there?" And the voice on the other end said, "Yes, this is Brenda." Yes, this is Brenda.
Now, Ms. Gaffney, did you recognize that voice on the line?
Yeah.
Okay, was that Brenda Powell?
It was not Brenda.
Who did you recognize that voice to be?
I was sure it was Sydney. Both Dean Frazier and I looked at each other and sort of shook our heads at each other and said, that's not Brenda. And he then said, Sydney, I think this is you. This is not Brenda.
And what happened next?
The phone went dead.
And Michael, you can see the defendant's reaction to that testimony of hearing this witness recount what happened. I want to kind of get your opinion on that. Her demeanor in court, her defense now says she did have these mental issues. They were just undiagnosed and treated at the time this happened.
What I want to say is, would make people feel uncomfortable, but peering them into the criminal justice system. What you saw in that courtroom was what you see in jails. When I first became a public defender, I'd visit jails, and there was this pungent smell, and it was awful, and the environment was awful. And what I found out early on in my career is that the overwhelming majority of offenders, aside from white-collar criminals, have mental health issues. We use the jail system as a way of treating mental health issues. Not well, but that's who's there. most of the people that are there have mental health issues, right? And I'm not saying there's a better way of doing it. There might be, but that's basically what it is. And so what you're seeing in that courtroom, you're seeing a breakdown, right? You have to have some mental health issues to do some of the things that some of these people are accused of. So what you're seeing here in that courtroom is sad, it's tragic, there are no winners. And that's basically what's on display. But what you see there in that courtroom is what you see in the jails. And that's why people, when they get convicted for long sentences, they're immediately on suicide watch, right? For a reason. They have suicide protocols in jails when you're convicted. You're surrounded by people around you. And people who don't have mental health issues, white-collar criminals, when they go to jail for a long period of time, probably for the rest of their life, they almost always commit suicide. Because it's a terrible, terrible situation. It's the worst of our society and the worst place in our society.
Michael Jaafar, I think you're even pointing to this legal side of it where even though people have these exhibited symptoms, they don't always get the defense of insanity. It's not something, it's not a hurdle that they can pass inside of the courtroom because they have to be able to be proven as didn't understand right from wrong despite these issues. I want to play a clip from the body camera that we can't see the video because the judge ruled that it could not be shown on camera, but we can hear what this defendant sounded like following this horrific instance between her mother and that was heard by those administrators. Let's listen to that, and I want your reaction on the other side.
Are you cut?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're cut somewhere.
I don't think so.
Yeah, your hand.
No, I was helping her. I grabbed her.
All right, stop. I'll tell you what, can you sit on the ground here real quick? Come on. Come on.
You said the ground.
Yeah, you're fine right there.
No.
You're fine right there.
I grabbed the knife.
Before the Quicken Street, picture ramp. A truck crossed concrete.
This is minor. They might have a more, I don't know. Check that victim in there. She's got cuts on her hands. I don't know what they have in there, but there's a female down in there. Yeah.
What's going on?
I don't know. We just got
dad. I'm the dad.
Okay, what's...
You hear those officers there trying to help her. They don't know what's going on, but she's saying things that cover this up, Michael. They are hearing from her that there was someone else in the house, that she was trying to help her mom versus what actually happened. Does that keep it from getting over that hurdle of not understanding right from wrong when this happened?
Here's my thought on that. Her mom worked in the pediatric oncology unit at the Children's Hospital. I'm not a strong enough person to have that career. Her mom helped children who had cancer. If there's a more heart-wrenching job in our society, you have to tell me what it is. And then she also claimed that her mom was her best friend. And by all accounts and by the pictures, she seemed like she loved her mom. So it seems to me to do what she did to a person of her mom's caliber, helping children who deal with cancer, as a layman, there must have been some sort of a psychotic breakdown. So to answer your question, Julia, does it overcome it? The sounds of that voice and that recording seems to me like something went off the rails in that girl's mind. I don't think I'm a good enough attorney to get a defendant off on temporary insanity. I would decline that case 10 times out of 10 because I know I'll lose, right? But are there lawyers out there who've successfully done it? When we're done with this broadcast, I'm going to Google and see the stats on how many times a lawyer has been successful on getting it. And whoever those lawyers are, if you're ever in trouble, hire those people. Because those are the most brilliant lawyers in our society, because those defenses are impossible, right? But to answer your question, what I heard on that recording, maybe it might rise to that level, but it's a very sad and tragic situation. Her mom helped kids who were dealing with cancer, and she did this to her. So I don't know.
Right.
Tragic story.
It is, and it'll be difficult, I think, too, Michael, for jurors to wrap their mind around it as well as to your point there. Thank you for your insights, Michael Jaafar. All right, let's bring in national trial attorney, our guest for this hour, Michael Jaafar. Michael, this is such a sad, sad case. We have I believe the 10-year-old actually goes to the neighbor's house and asks to call the police. He hasn't eaten. This is concerning, especially considering that this woman had a YouTube page with millions of followers about how to raise children right.
Hiding in plain sight, right? I mean, I'm shocked at the fact. I'm really curious to see how the facts play out here. What is what happened? They had a beautiful home. They had a YouTube channel. They had a lot of followers, and they were giving people advice on parenting. And then the kid ducks out of the house with duct tape tied around their appendages, and they had open cuts. From the pictures we're looking at, this woman. This is one of the most puzzling, kind of Shakespearean type of fact patterns we see. So yeah, if there was any evidence of abuse, if they could establish that she tied duct tape around the appendages of a kid and cut a kid that was in her care, she's going to be facing some serious prison time. Serious prison time. Her life's already destroyed, no matter what happens. But talk about hiding in plain sight. I mean, look at the pictures. Beautiful family, beautiful situation, giving you and I advice on parenting, but stabbing a kid.
Sometimes things are not
the
as
dichotomy. Yeah, exactly. The dichotomy is this is insane.
Absolutely. Just not as they seem on social media. Sometimes the smiling photos are just a front. We don't know. These are charges and being investigated. I do want to play a clip from her vlog so we can actually hear from Ruby Frankie. And it may go to the defense, perhaps, in this allegation that part of it is malnutrition, whether or not she was feeding her children. Take a listen.
I am so proud of Chad. This entire summer, it's been like 3 days. The entire summer, for 3 days, Chad has just stayed offline, off the computer, off video games, and he's really trying really hard to be healthy and to stay outside with friends and get fresh air. And I'm just really proud of him.
Cindy.
I thought you boys were gonna be eating healthy today.
You see that, and it looks like just the happiest family, very normal. But Michael Jaafar, there are parents who do things that are a little bit untraditional. And I wonder if any of that would come into a defense in this case if there were the duct tape around the appendages. I think there's going to be a very hard thing to argue if it is proven by prosecutors in this case. But what do you make about these allegations with food if she's also on this vlog talking about perhaps some strict dietary approaches to her parenting?
Here's my thoughts. From analyzing this purely from a legal standpoint, the defense is gonna have to point at the kid and say that the kid is telling a tale. I love my kid. He's wrong, and here's why he's wrong. The reason the duct tape was tied around the appendages was they played a game. She's going to be in consultation with her attorneys. Her attorneys are not going to talk to her in the jail cell. She's going to be out on bail. They're going to talk to her in privacy. No one's going to hear those conversations. Why is your kid so skinny? What's going on with the videos here of them eating the Twinkies, but he's saying that he's malnourished, and she now has other witnesses that are going to testify against her and say, hey, we've been telling you guys about the abuse, right? So is this a case of aggressive parenting? You know, aggressive parenting is legal, right? My kids eat whatever they want, and I could probably be a better parent in terms of food, but that's my style. But I know some parents that put their kids on diets. That's not illegal. If what she was doing was putting her kids on a diet, you know, I don't know, 4 days a week, that would be fine. But if what she was doing was putting on a show, giving them the Twinkies, and then putting the camera down, taking it away, and then tying them in the basement, that's not okay. You're not allowed to do whatever you want to your child, right? You can parent them, but you can't do anything you want. So in terms of her defense, I think she's going to have to point at her kid. She's going to have to point the finger in her kid, and she's going to have to divide the kids from one another and have other kids come in and say, my mom's not like that. And then at that point, she'll be able to defend herself legally.
Interesting stuff. We're going to continue following this case, of course. Thank you, Michael, for your insights on that.